So your dad was unfaithful when he was around 80 years old?
No, he was unfaithful in his late 70s, I would say.
And this is at a time when he had one leg, when they already amputated his leg?
No, he was not unfaithful at that point. At that point, she had already come back. This was in the late 80s when this kind of came up in the family, and she left. He was in his 70s at that time. But Laura told me that my dad was quite a guy in the sack, and he was just as strong as he ever was in his youth, and when they first met in the mid 70s.
Oh, God bless him for that. Yeah.
So he was a virile man, and but he'd always used women, and he was a misogynist at best. And my mother had caught him with being unfaithful, and she threatened to leave. As a matter of fact, she was planning to divorce him when she came back from Europe, but then this whole Watergate thing erupted, and she stood by her husband. I mean, not only stood by him, but did everything she could to help him, even though she had already made plans to leave, and she told me so. And it's to her great credit as a woman that she saw the necessity of helping this man that had been so deceitful to her and conducting affairs on the side for years, their whole life together. He was unfaithful.
Did you ever say to Oliver Stone, "Hey man, you did this movie, Nixon? How come you didn't mention the murder of my mother?"
No, but that's a pretty good question. I think the whole Watergate plane crash thing is not really. It's not known by a lot of people. No. I mean, it really isn't, and it's probably the deepest and darkest secret of the Watergate secrets that have come out. There was a lot of there was other people on that plane that needed to be killed. Michelle Clark, she was on that plane. She was a CBS News reporter, and she had agreed to work on a story about Watergate with my mother. So they were flying to Chicago together to start an interview and an investigative journalistic approach by Michelle Clark. Also, there was people on board that flight that were connected to Attorney General John Mitchell in a natural gas investigation for Mitchell was under investigation for corruptly helping the El Paso Natural Gas Company against its main competitor, the Northern Natural Gas Company. Mitchell's decision to drop antitrust charges was worth an estimated $300 million to El Paso Gas. And Ralph Blodgett and a guy named James W. Kruger, two attorneys working for Northern Natural Gas Company in the investigation of Mitchell, were both killed in that crash. So there was a few things going on that flight, and my mother, had expressed many times to me that she knew she was being followed. She was afraid for her life. Her responsibility as a Watergate pay mistress, collecting money from lockers at Greyhound Station and at airports in and around D.C. In the wee hours, waiting by phone booths in the deserted and dilapidated areas for phone calls from Nixon people to guide her to a drop-off or a pickup place for money. And then she would collect the money, and then in the next week or so, she would disperse it to the Cubans and to Liddy and McCord. And she was on her way to Chicago. She was on her way there to pay off a guy that built some of the hand-built some of the custom wire transmission stuff that was used in Watergate, because during one of the earlier break-ins, they were very disappointed at the stuff they'd gotten through the CIA and through the White House for surveillance and bugging.
Do you know the name of that guy?
Yeah, what's that?
Do you know the name of the bug manufacturer?
Yeah, let's see. I have it here.
Ernie Nah.
Let's see. I'm looking at my book right now.
Because you're actually writing a book on the murder of your mother as well. In fact, the book is complete. You sent me a copy of it.
Yeah, the book is complete. It's in the editing phase right now, and it'll be out in the fall. Let's see. The guy's name. If I find it,
don't worry about it.
I'll cut it into the conversation.
Yeah.
He was a Chicago guy that hand built that kind of equipment.
Not Ernie Rizzo.
Yeah.
Not Ernie Rizzo, right?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
That name doesn't ring a bell.
Okay.
Stevens, his name looks like it is. Michael Stevens, proprietor of Chicago-based Stevens Research Laboratories, who sold McCord debugging devices he was arrested with at the Watergate Hotel. And as a matter of fact, Stevens informed the FBI that Dorothy Hunt was traveling to see him to ensure his silence with a cash payment. And just after the crash, he was in fear for his own life. He notified the FBI of threats made to him by persons unknown who claimed that Dorothy Hunt's death was a homicide, and that he would be next in line if he ever talked about it. And so he officially reported these threats to the FBI, and that Dorothy Hunt was murdered, and that he was in fear of his own life. His name was Michael Stevens of Stevens Research Laboratories, or whatever.
It's interesting to see how deep the payments were going. All the way down to the guy manufacturing the bugs.
Yeah, I mean, there was a tremendous amount of money. When I went down, when my dad asked me a day after Watergate broke in the papers to meet him down at a bank in Georgetown, there was at least $250,000 in that envelope that I stuffed in the back part of my pants, and then put my blazer, my suit jacket over it, and drove home with that. My dad said, "Look, you may or may not be followed by persons, possibly FBI, but try to keep an eye on your rearview mirror, and if you notice a vehicle that's been behind you for a substantial amount of time, 6 blocks, 10 blocks, when you're leaving DC to come back out to our house, just make some turns, try to get rid of them, And I'm like, whoa, this is like really intense here, and I was nervous and afraid, but made it home, and I hid the envelope in a prearranged location in our basement for my dad. And then my mother and I opened it up when she came back from Europe, and there was just a tremendous amount of money in there. She gave me $5,000, and she said, "Buy a van and get out of town. Go." And I'm like, "Go? Where am I going to go?" And she's like, "Take a trip around the country. Just take a drive. Go with your girlfriend. Go." So I did. I bought a van, a Dodge van, and my girlfriend and I went on a tour around the country. Took the northern way out and the southern route back. And there's a chapter in the book Dorothy that's going to be coming out called "Hippie with a Shotgun." That's me.
Oh, that's great, man. Because you slept in the van, I guess, right?
Yeah, we slept in the van. We did all the national parks and all that stuff. But in Texas, we ran into some trouble on the road. Being long hairs and having feathers dangling in the van that could be seen, and almost ran off the road. But I did have my mother's 20 gauge shotgun in the van with us, and as this redneck truck pulled alongside of us after almost pushing us off the road, goddamn hippies that we were. My girlfriend handed me the shotgun, and she's scared, and I cocked that thing and levied it right at their window, and boy, did that cause them to back the heck off on that one, and that's why I call that little chapter "Hippie with a Shotgun."
If only the guy had known, hey, your dad was killing commies, he was on the same
side. I know. I mean, which I should have hung a sign out my window. My dad's a dangerous person. Don't mess with me. I know Cubans.
Yeah, there you go. So listen, we got 20 minutes left then we're going to drop 2 stations. But we go another hour if you want to take some phone calls. But we got 20 minutes left, so it's up to you if you want to stay longer. and take some calls. You know, all the calls we'll get. People want to, how many assassins were on the head of a pin, but let's do it. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah.
Now, we got 20 minutes,
That's fine.
and we're going to drop 2 stations. We're going to be on a whole bunch of stations all over Europe and Spreaker and iHeart and everything like that, YouTube. So give us an idea of what your dad told you, what went down in the JFK assassination.
Okay, well, when it came down to actual substance of what's called the last confession or the last testament, he outlined the scenario that is in the book, and that scenario is that in the summer of 1960, early summer, April, May of '63, he was approached by trustworthy persons, by David. What was his name?
David Ferry? No.
No. Let's see. David. He was a Latino. Oh, let's see. It's right here. Morales. David Morales, a guy that my father worked a lot with at the Miami station, CIA station in Florida. There, approached by David Morales, and that Morales explained to my father that he had been picked by Bill Harvey, who was a very colorful, I'll say, CIA operative high up in the agency, and had run afoul of Bobby Kennedy many, many times. As a matter of fact, when Jack Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy both put the kibosh on any activities involving gun running or any kind of activity against Cuba during the Cuban Missile Crisis, Bill Harvey just ignored it completely and was sending boats to sabotage Cuban radio stations and have planes dropping diseased bugs and things on the Cuban crops and dropping counterfeit currency on the cities in Cuba. And Bobby Kennedy found out and was just enraged and basically fired Bill Harvey, from his position in CIA and sent him to Rome, where he was supposed to be far away from the Cuban situation, and he should have stopped then, but Bill didn't. He kept on. He was a real loyalist to the Cubans as well. But my father viewed Bill Harvey as a gun-toting, because he wore his guns on his hips like a Western guy,
right.
A gun-toting psycho, an alcoholic. He was a hard-drinking man and prone to outbursts of whose of whose limits we don't really know yet. But anyways, Bill Harvey was, according to Morales, to my dad, was behind this operation to remove someone high up in the government that was perceived as a threat. So my father went to a meeting at a safe house in and around Miami, and found out during the meeting that there was a motivation going on within the CIA and accepted and fostered by some members in the White House, notably LBJ and Cord Meyer, and also had the support of J. Edgar Hoover for the removal of Kennedy from office. There was another meeting in a safe house where this was discussed in a little bit further terms. Sturgis was at that meeting. David Morales was at that meeting. It was told to my father that there was that one of his close friends, another recruit another man my father recruited, was David Atlee Phillips. He was handling a couple of guys, one of which who was Oswald, as the guy that was going to take the dub for the assassination. They had a lot of things worked out already, potentially worked out, and my father, at that point, the things that he told me. I mean, he named Morales, David Atlee Phillips, Bill Harvey, Frank Sturgis, Cord Meyer, who is personal friends with Lyndon Johnson, That's why Lyndon went to Cord, who then